Mr. Chairman and members, Duncan McFetters representing the American Wind Energy Association, along with a number of the leading international renewable wind and energy solar companies like Iberdrola, EDP Renewables, and Pattern Energy. We are here to support Mr. Farron's confirmation today. We believe his breadth of experience at the PUC and at the Cal ISO is perfect for what we are trying to achieve with our renewable policies here in the state, and we urge his confirmation.
Mr. Fedrick. Next witness in support.
Yes, good afternoon. Mr. Chair, members, Brian White here on behalf of Recurrent Energy. We are a large-scale solar developer based in San Francisco, have built several projects up and down the state, and we also in support of Mr. Farron as a member of the CAISO board. We're also a nominating member of the CAISO committee, so we understand his experience. We've worked with him in the past at the PUC, and we would greatly appreciate your confirmation for his appointment today.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, committee member Silvio Ferrari on behalf of the California Energy Storage Alliance and the Solar Energy Industry Association, also in support of Mr. Farron's confirmation.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of Advanced Energy Economy. We're a national association of businesses in the advanced energy sector. We cover a wide variety of technologies. We are in strong support of Mr. Farron's nomination. We believe that he brings the experience and skill set necessary, and we ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Next, thank you very much, Ms. Shaw. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Jesus Arredondo on behalf of the Western Power Trading Forum and our over 75 member companies. They own the gambit of renewable generation and are investors in California. We support the confirmation and urge you to support him today.
Thank you very much. Next witness in support.
Amber Blix with the Independent Energy Producers Association here in support. We also agree that Mr. Farron's experience both in the energy sector and outside of the energy sector make him a well-suited candidate for this position.
Hi, Genevieve Gale from the Environmental Defense Fund in strong support.
Thank you very much. Next witness in support.
Mr. Chair, members, John White from the Center for Energy Efficiency and Renewable Technologies. We thank the committee for its thoughtful questions. We think that Commissioner Farron has the potential to really help answer these questions and move the dialogue forward in the fullness of time. We think that his experience has proven to be a help in moving the ISO towards greater sensitivity to the importance of reducing pollution in California, while at the same time protecting markets. So we think he's one of the finest appointees of this administration, and we look forward to his continued service. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. White. Next witness in support.
Audra Hartman on behalf of CLECA, the California Large Energy Consumers Association. We've had the opportunity to work with Mr. Farron at the Public Utilities Commission. We appreciate your expertise in the financial industry, despite what you said, the energy markets as well. And we really support his confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Hi, Jamie Miner on behalf of Marin Clean Energy, the Energy Efficiency Council and Large Scale Solar Association. Here in support, appreciate you always being approachable and your support of renewables. Thanks.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Good afternoon. Cassie Gilson on behalf of the SunPower Corporation in strong support of Mr. Farron's confirmation.
Thank you. Next witness in support.
Max Perry on behalf of Calpine, also in support.
Thank you. And just so it's noted on the record for SunPower, that was Tom Warner, right? Yes. Yeah, he called me from Paris. Yes.
Thank you. Melissa Cortez Roth on behalf of the California Wind Energy Association here in support of the confirmation.
Thank you. Last witness, I believe, in support.
Margaret Gladstein on behalf of Solar City in strong support. We believe he's eminently qualified.
Thank you so very much. Any other witnesses in support of today's nominee, Mr. Farron? Any other witnesses in support? Seeing none, those in opposition? Seeing no one in opposition? Anyone net neutrality right now? Net energy neutrality? No NEMs. Okay. I just want to make sure, colleagues, any other commentaries or questions that anyone may have? I'm seeing none right now. Mr. Farron, let me just share just a couple words. I do believe that you are eminently qualified based on our past experiences together at the PUC. You're highly intelligent, you're very capable, and I also believe that this is a huge huge opportunity to get it right, or it's a huge opportunity to get it very wrong. And either way, it will be on your watch. Just because you have a very impressive CV, especially understanding markets globally, doesn't necessarily, one thing that made me a little nervous is that you're not an energy expert. Well, if you're not an energy expert, then it makes me nervous why you're before this committee right now. So this is an incredible opportunity, but what I'm going to ask is I'm going to ask really strong leadership and proactiveness on behalf of the governance structure and you specifically based on our shared experiences at the PUC. This is a still ongoing dynamic and fluid issue with the legislature. I know both chambers, the Assembly as well as the Senate, still reserve very, very strong reservations on this issue, but have not shut the door to regionalization. But a lot of benchmarks have to be hit so there's a sense of confidence that we protect our constituents who are the consumers of energy, whether they're business or individuals. Again, that we continue to reduce carbon in a very complicated potential market where we move electrons that are politicized with folks who either believe in it or don't believe in it, you know. So this is not just simple, you know, black and white stuff. It's very, very complex. I don't move forward with any reluctance with regards to your person, because I know the type of individual that you are and the trials and tribulations that you have endured at a very deeply personal level. But overall, on this issue, I'm still highly reluctant on this issue until we have a lot of questions that are answered on the issue of regionalization, not on your nomination per se. You're very interesting because you have today's potential vote, and if you were to move forward, you have Thursday, which confirmation-wise is the last day. Is the very last day, actually. And if you were to move forward and not succeed on the floor tomorrow, then it's game over. You know, unless I think it's game over unless you withdraw him right now, or I don't know if you have the ability if it's finished tomorrow. My understanding legally, net. Okay, so what I'm saying is this puts us in a very interesting dynamic. But I know there is a second Cal ISO board member looming on the horizon somewhere. You know, that's coming to town soon. So I think we're all looking forward to meeting him or her. I don't know who she is. Or Mr. Olson. Mr. Olson, you know. Is there any women on this board? No? There is? One? One? Okay. It's a 3-to-1 ratio or it's a 4-to-1 ratio right there. Okay, but it's neither here nor there. But I'm sure we have a lot of folks who are capable women. So with that, we're gonna, can I entertain a motion for Mr. Mark Farren? We have a motion that has been made by Ms. Leyva from San Bernardino, Upland area. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Berryhill? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Canella? Aye. Canella, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Mr. Farren, thank you very much, and congratulations. You passed on a 5-0 vote. So what we're going to do is we're going to move forward with our agenda, file items number 1. However, we're going to take a 5-minute break and reconvene in 5 minutes at 3:15. the Occupational Safety Health Appeals Board, OSHA Board. Ms. Freeman, congratulations, I'm sorry, welcome, come. Ms. Freeman, if there are any Ms. Fryman, if there are any loved ones or friends that you'd like to introduce, please do so.
Not at this time.
Not this time, okay. So noted on the record, if you think I had, deep concerns about Mr. Farron, I have even deeper concerns about Ms. Fryman. So we'll be here for a long time.
And I appreciate those concerns.
Okay, so why don't we start, Ms. Fryman, why don't we give an introduction of yourself, and we'll go to questions and commentaries with the members.
Good afternoon, Senators. I really appreciate your time today. I am very honored to have an opportunity to be reappointed and hopefully, with your approval, continue to work with the Occupational Safety and Health Appeals Board to advance occupational safety and health in California workplaces. This little board of 3 people has a very important role to play within the Department of Industrial Relations. And that's particularly why I appreciate the opportunity to serve on the board. We provide a forum for due process for employers, and support and credibility for Cal OSHA enforcement activities. And I think we all agree that Cal OSHA plays an important role in occupational safety and health. So our interaction and support of Cal OSHA is a very good partnership and a very, I think, productive structure within the Department of Industrial Relations. I have 30 years of experience with occupational safety and health, and it's really gratifying to be able to bring that to the deliberation of our cases and to be able to consult with my fellow board members about what's going on the shop floor and what's going on in the larger demographics, what's going on within industry. I am the management member, and I have an extensive network of management folks who provide information to me about the conditions that we see on a daily basis. And I am able to share that with my board members, and I am fortunate that they're very willing to listen and that we're willing to come to consensus on many, many decisions. So with your support, I look forward to continue to working with 2 wonderful board members and a staff that's very focused on professional competency, improvement, fairness, and transparency. I welcome your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fryman. Why don't we go to questions or answers? Mr. Vice Chair? Seeing none right now. Ms. Mitchell.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm a sitting member of the Labor Committee, and as I was preparing for my conversation today with you, it occurred to me the sheer number of bills I've heard just this year alone dealing with a variety of workplace issues. Just today, the notion of women janitors, an assembly bill, women janitors who are victims of rape when they're alone, doing janitorial services in buildings late at night. Anyway, and so, my aha moment is, sometimes it's unhealthy to come to work. I know there was a recent report released by a nonprofit organization that looked at the disproportionate number of Latinos and foreign-born Latinos who, in terms of the rate of death at the workplace. And so I'm curious as to what Cal OSHA, the board, thinks of that, is doing about that, and specifically the extent to which the appeals board conducts its hearings in languages other than English. As we look at the changing demographics of the California workforce, I'm curious as to whether the board and Cal OSHA is keeping up with that.
The Occupational Safety and Health Appeals Board is primarily focused on deciding appeals of Cal OSHA violations. So that is our overarching mission. And that really limits the landscape for us, if you will. What we do is we take the rules, the safety orders as they are promulgated and adopted by the Standards Board, which is where a lot of the action is, if you will. And then we see if after an inspection and an employer is cited for violating that rule, we see if they have an argument for or against that we can support on appeal. So we don't have an opportunity to make a rule that would impact specifically a janitor who finds herself in that kind of, or a Latino worker who might be more prone to be in a higher industry and more prone to have a higher fatality rate, face a higher fatality rate. What we are able to do is to bring that information and perspective to those specific cases that come before us and apply them to those specific fact situations in one workplace, generally one workplace, and come to a decision that if we do it right, is going to be appreciated by a wide array of stakeholders and workers, and is going to advance health and safety for California.
I appreciate that. And I only cited the example of that bill as just my one example today of a collection of legislation that's focusing on a variety of issues impacting workers, including kind of health and safety. So that's why I shared that. With regard to the appeals board conducting its hearings in languages other than English, because within your lane, I assume, it's also the right of employees to participate. And so are you conducting your hearings, and do you make translators available? How do you accommodate non-English speaking workers?
Yes, we do make them available on a hearing by hearing basis. There's usually a request, and for employers as much as for employees. And as far as I know, we've been pretty effective in that regard. I haven't heard any complaints about people not being able to get translators or to understand the proceedings.
Last question for me, Mr. Pro Tem, and it deals with the appeals process and overall board operations. What substantive and procedural issues most frequently prompt you to reconsider an ALJ decision? What's your process?
Our directive, if you will, is to review what might be factual or procedural errors that might be made by the ad law judge, and those could be brought to our attention. We review all ad law judge decisions, administrative law judge decisions. So we might find those ourselves. They might be brought to us by any of the parties in a subsequent filing. And those can be just about anything when you talk about factual findings and procedural errors. So I'm not focusing on a specific one that I can give you as an example
than
right now,
Generally,
but
procedural errors is what is the trigger for you?
yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Berryhill? No questions? Okay, well, okay. No other questions from any of the members? Seeing none, for those who are in support of today's nominee for the OSHA board, please comment up. Those who are in support. Those who are not in support, Ms. Fryman, please comment them up. I see no folks in opposition either. Do we have a motion from Ms. Fryman? So moved. We have a motion made by Mr. Vice Chair. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Berryhill? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Leyva? Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Yes, it passes on, Ms. Fryman, you pass on a 4-0 vote. What we're going to do is we're going to keep the roll open so that Ms. Leyva, when she comes back, may add on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lastly, we have Ms. Mary Kay McComb. Ms. Mary Kay McComb, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your patience. I know you and Ms. Fryman were very, very patient through the very long and extensive hearing with regards to Mr. Mark Farren. Are there any folks that you'd like to introduce?
Well, my family couldn't be here, but I would like to honor them for the record.
Absolutely.
First of all, my husband, Gregory Clark, who just texted me that he just touched down. If you just asked Mr. Farren a few more questions, he could have been here.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. That's
My
all.
son, Max, who couldn't be here because he's studying abroad. My daughter, who is also abroad, but at least had the good sense to send chocolate-covered strawberries. And my son, Innes, who couldn't be here because he's actually at the officer training school for the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I asked the Marines if they could let him go, but they said no thanks.
No, thanks. Okay. Well, why don't we start with your personal statement, then we'll go to questions and answers from the members.
Thank you very much. The Office of the State Public Defender does the difficult work of defending the constitutional rights of the men and women who've been sentenced to die. It has a tradition of doing so in a highly professional and very, very collaborative manner. And as part of that, I'd like to recognize that a great number of my staff are here today, attorneys, people from human resources, support staff, and business services, and I think that's just a reflection of how collaborative the agency is. And I'd like to continue that. If my appointment is confirmed by the Senate, my intent is to continue and to improve upon that tradition, and my intent is to completely devote myself to that task. That said, I'm available for any questions from the senators.
Thank you very much, Ms. McComb. Ms. Mitchell.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for our conversation today. You educated me a great deal in terms of the needs of the office. So if we could begin by kind of hearing from your perspective, given the number of years you've been there, now assuming the top dog, if you will, position.
Well, I've been a state public defender since 1991. Dog's years. Yeah. I was appointed, nominated as state public defender in January of this year.
Right.
So just assume the responsibilities.
So given your new role and the leadership role, how do you envision the future of the OSPD?
Thank you for that. The state public defender was founded in the mid-'70s and charged with the responsibility of providing high quality and consistent representation to indigent criminal defendants. And most recently, OSPD has had the laboring oar of representing individuals who've been sentenced to death. And however, I think as the senators might be aware, the death penalty in California is very fluid right now. There will be likely 2 ballot initiatives on the ballot relating to the death penalty, one replacing the death penalty with life without the possibility of parole, and one asking the state public defender to do the work that it does in a dramatically compressed time frame. However, regardless of how the people speak in November, my vision for OSPD is to serve in a leadership role on a statewide level in providing a response to the needs of indigent defendants in a manner that assures that California provides the defense in a criminal case, defendants in a criminal case to which all citizens are entitled. Thank you.
It's curious to me, given the kind of juxtaposition you're in with the two initiatives, one elimination, one shortening the time frame.
You may be planning a challenge.
I should say so. And given what you shared with me in terms of the reduction of the number of attorneys there over time, from a high of 110 to your current number of 40-ish?
40. Well, we have positions now for 42. We have 34 of those filled right this minute.
If the second of said referendums were to pass, where you would shorten the time frame by which someone would need to go through the process, I would assume that would require significant resources and would need to significantly increase the number of attorneys in order to get the job done, if you will, according to the referendum.
Indeed. It would require a doubling of resources. We would be asked to provide the same amount of appellate services in roughly half the time that you actually do it. We now do it, so my estimate would be that if we were to provide appellate services at the rate at which we currently do, we would probably have to double the number of attorneys that OSPD would have to have on staff. The people of California may choose to compress the time frame in this manner. That is their right. However, I do think that it's important to recognize that this does have a cost.
And the referendum doesn't skip steps, per se. It just compressed the time frame within which the process must take place?
It doesn't skip any steps. It does significantly alter the process. From the point of view of OSPD, the primary impact on us would be the compression of the time frame.
And the average time frame currently it takes?
For OSPD to process an appeal from the minute that we're appointed through affirmance by the California Supreme Court is something on the order of 5 years, 5 to 7 years.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Mr. Vice Chair. No questions. Mr. Berryhill.
Hi, very quickly, you stated in your meeting with our staff that there's a need to reform the death penalty laws to what the law was originally meant for. One that focused solely on the most serious crimes. Could you share with the committee what you consider a most serious crime? Because at that end of the buggy whip, they're all serious.
Yes, and I don't disagree with the Senator Berryhill that homicide is always serious. And I hope that any remarks I make would be taken in that context. Homicide is a terrible crime. It's always terrible. But from the point of view of the death penalty, what the death penalty is intended for is for the most serious of the most serious crimes. In other words, the very most aggravated homicides. California has, over the years, since the death penalty was reinstituted in the late 70s, vastly expanded the number of homicides which qualify for the death penalty. In discussing this with your staff, my point was that there is currently a backlog in the ability of OSPD and other providers to provide appellate services, and that is in part because there are many, many more death penalties coming into the pipeline than California has provided the funding for in appellate services. So, to get to your question, what I mean is that if that pipeline were narrowed so that only the most serious homicides were eligible for the death penalty, then California, at its current level that it is willing to provide services, could keep up with the backlog. And what do I mean by very serious homicides? I would mention in that regard certain kinds of what we call special circumstances, which are extremely aggravated. For example, police officer killing or witness killing, multiple murder, not, which California now has these very broad definitions of homicides that qualify. For example, lying in wait, which encompasses many homicides, or felony murder, which encompasses many homicides.
You mentioned the great backlog of folks on death row right now, and we got a bunch of them. We talked a little bit about dual track for processing the death penalty. Could you talk a little bit how you feel about dual tracking?
Yes, I believe you're referring to the fact that California has a system that both has an appeal, which is part of the review of the death sentence that is based solely on the record, and has a petition for writ of habeas corpus, which is also a review of the constitutionality of the sentence from a much broader perspective. Currently, California has very strictly separated those two functions, both of which are constitutionally required, I might add, to the Office of the State Public Defender, which does appellate work, and Habeas Corpus Resource Center, which does largely habeas corpus. I believe that in the future, with considerable thought to protecting the rights of the criminal defendants in this matter, would be possible to integrate those two functions in a manner which provides the constitutional review that's absolutely necessary, but at the same time gives us some efficiencies to the services which must be provided.
Great, thank you. No more questions.
No more questions, okay. I just have one question, and just sort of kind of through your opinion, how do you prepare young attorneys for these types of appellate cases when it comes to recruiting and training young attorneys coming up to deal with very complex cases?
I have to tell you, this is one of the most interesting part of being part of this, is because you take young lawyers who have a passion for criminal defense or a passion for social justice, and you introduce them to the topic of the very complex area of criminal law and the very intense factual situations with which we deal. And OSP does that through a variety of methods. We have a summer internship program, which some of our deputies are in charge of, and reach out to a variety of young lawyers and try to get them training and interest in the topic. We also have introduced our lawyers to the practice through a very, very collaborative lawyering process, where we have a team structure where older lawyers mentor younger lawyers. Marvelously effective.
Okay, let me go. We have Ms. Leyva back. Any questions?
No questions, just very much enjoyed meeting with you, Ms. McComb. I think you're eminently qualified and appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, fantastic. Any folks in support of today's nominee? Any folks in support of today's nominee for the office of the State Public Defender? Leroy, you're in support? I said anyone, he shot right off, you know? Okay, shot right off, okay. Any folks in opposition? Any folks in opposition? I'm seeing no folks in opposition. So with that, can I entertain a motion? We have a motion that's been made by Ms. Mitchell. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Berryhill? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Ms. McComb, congratulations.
Thank you
passed
very much.
5-0.
Yes.
Okay, colleagues, we have a roll that's still open. File items number 2 through 5. File items number 2 through 5. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Cannella? Aye. Cannella, aye.
Okay, those motions pass on a 5-0 vote. Let's go to file item number 1. That is 1B. File item number 1B. That is Ms. Fryman. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senator Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. 5-0.
That motion passes on a 5-0 vote. We're going to adjourn this meeting and we're going to go into executive session.